Indianapolis Colts fans, I don't know about you, but it feels like the front office might finally be ready to make an aggressive splash in the wide receiver market. Reports are surfacing that New Orleans Saints star Chris Olave is being linked to our Colts as a potential trade target due to stalled contract negotiations. Bringing a playmaker with his elite route running and proven production into our offense would change the entire identity of this squad overnight. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Smash that like button, subscribe, and tell me your name and city in the comments. Let's get into it. New Orleans Saints wide receiver Chris Olave has become the center of a fresh NFL trade rumor linking him to the Indianapolis Colts. While Olave has no prior history with our organization, his development as a standout wideout has caught the eye of Colts fans who prioritize building a potent offense under Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard. This speculation stems from an analysis by Anthony Palacios of Last Word on Sports, who suggests that stalled contract negotiations could eventually force the Saints to move their star playmaker. Olave is entering the final year of his 4-year, $19.27 million rookie contract and is coming off a career-best season where he hauled in 100 receptions for 1,163 yards and 9 touchdowns. The report clarifies that the Saints are not actively shopping him, but the possibility of a trade remains a talking point because of the team's ongoing roster rebuilding efforts. For Indianapolis, the idea of adding a proven commodity to a group that includes Josh Downs and Alec Pierce is an exciting prospect, though it remains purely a hypothetical scenario at this stage. Here's where it gets interesting as fans weigh the cost of acquiring such talent against the stability of our current roster construction. The prospect of landing a player of this caliber sparks plenty of debate among us, as we have seen how important it is to provide our quarterback with consistent, reliable targets on the outside. However, we have to look closer at whether this fits the long-term vision of our front office, or if the reported leverage Olave holds from his recent production makes him too expensive to realistically pursue in a trade. What specific assets would Chris Ballard be willing to part with to secure a player who has not yet signed a long-term extension with his current club? The most staggering detail regarding this potential move is the financial reality of the Saints currently holding an anchor around their neck that could finally force a blockbuster trade. We are looking at a scenario where Chris Olave, fresh off a massive season of 100 receptions, 1,163 yards, and 9 touchdowns, is entering the final year of his $19.27 million rookie deal. Anthony Palacios of Last Word on Sports suggests that the Saints might struggle to match the record-setting salaries recently handed to top wideouts, creating a standoff that could leave the door wide open for our front office to strike. Historically, waiting out a contract negotiation in New Orleans has created leverage for teams with the necessary capital to pounce. And with the Saints currently in a rebuilding phase, they may feel pressured to cash in on their premier asset before his value dips. What makes this even bigger is that our own GM, Chris Ballard, has a well-documented history of prioritizing high-character, high-production players during their prime years to stabilize our offense. Behind the scenes, Shane Steichen and his staff are undoubtedly analyzing how this addition would change our identity, specifically by moving away from the injury-prone reliance we have seen on the perimeter in recent seasons. While Josh Downs is a staple in the slot, adding a proven outside threat like Olave would give our quarterback a reliable target that we have not truly possessed for several years. If the Saints fail to secure an extension before the training camp deadline, the front office in Indianapolis will be positioned perfectly to monitor the situation. While trade rumors can often be dismissed as pure noise, the combination of our current roster needs and the Saints' difficult salary cap math makes this a storyline that we need to watch closely as we progress through the season. The potential availability of Chris Olave brings a level of urgency to Indianapolis that we have not seen in quite some time. While the Saints have not signaled an intent to move him, the prospect of adding a playmaker with 100 receptions and 1,163 yards from last season could redefine our offensive identity under the leadership of Shane Steichen. Here's what people are missing regarding the tactical shift this move would force upon our roster. Adding a primary outside target would allow Josh Downs to operate more freely from his preferred slot position while offering insurance for Alec Pierce, who has struggled with durability issues throughout his career. Financially, the team would have to navigate the reality of his expiring rookie deal, as he is set to earn $15.49 million in 2026. This is a significant commitment, but securing a proven weapon in his prime is the kind of aggressive move that changes how our coaching staff prepares for every single defensive scheme we encounter. When we look at our upcoming schedule, having a receiver capable of stretching the field against aggressive secondary units would transform those difficult divisional road games into opportunities rather than tests of attrition. If we can stabilize the perimeter, our standing against rivals in the AFC South immediately improves, effectively closing the gap between us and the top tier of the conference. We are looking at a scenario where a mid-season trade could provide the exact spark needed to shift our playoff projections from hopeful to inevitable. As fans who have watched this organization carefully balance its assets, we know that waiting for a contract stalemate in New Orleans is a gamble. But the potential payoff of securing such a consistent target for our offense is simply too vital to ignore as we push toward the postseason. The prospect of adding Chris Olave to our Indianapolis Colts roster is certainly a conversation starter for any longtime fan of this organization. On the surface, the upside is massive, as adding a playmaker who tallied 100 receptions, 1,163 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns in 2025 would immediately provide the dynamic outside threat our current group needs to complement Josh Downs and Alec Pierce. Olave is entering his prime, and his ability to create separation could elevate our entire offensive output to a championship level. However, we must consider the significant downside of such a gamble. Negotiating a massive extension for a player entering his final contract year is a risky financial endeavor that could limit our flexibility elsewhere. Anthony Palacios of Last Word on Sports points out that the Saints are not shopping him, and any trade would likely require us to surrender significant draft capital or established talent to secure his services. Let's be real, the speculation surrounding Olave is largely tied to a potential contract impasse rather than a concrete desire from New Orleans to offload their star. While the Kansas City Chiefs are also being linked to this situation, I have my doubts about whether the Saints would actually let an asset of this caliber leave their building during a rebuild. The way I see it, the narrative that Olave is a lock to be moved feels slightly overblown at this stage, especially given that the Saints still control his rights through the 2026 season. Bringing in a high-priced receiver while we already have promising young talent developing at the position might be a luxury we cannot afford. I am not convinced that Chris Ballard will choose to mortgage our future assets for a player whose current team is not actively seeking a deal, as consistency in roster building usually pays off better in the long run. As we look toward the upcoming season, these trade rumors involving Chris Olave signal a clear aggressive shift in how our front office is building this roster. For years, we have prioritized steady growth, but the possibility of adding a receiver who just posted 100 catches for 1,163 yards and 9 touchdowns indicates that GM Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen are ready to push for a championship window. And here's why that's a big deal. By entertaining the prospect of acquiring an established star, the organization is proving they are no longer content with just being competitive in the AFC South. Instead, they are looking to provide our quarterback with a reliable, high-volume target who can create separation at the highest level. You should feel encouraged by this direction because it shows a commitment to maximizing our current talent rather than just waiting on development. Having an outside threat like Olave would perfectly complement our existing weapons, providing the consistency we have lacked in previous seasons. It is the kind of bold move that turns a playoff hopeful into a true contender. We should appreciate the fact that our team is being mentioned alongside an organization like the Kansas City Chiefs in these discussions, as it confirms that the rest of the league is taking our potential seriously. This strategy reflects a desire to secure long-term success while the pieces are finally aligning. As we evaluate these options, I have to ask you, would you rather see the front office pursue a trade for Chris Olave this year, or wait for a potential free agency move in 2027? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. For the shoe, I'll see you in the next one.